Chinese tariffs on barley imports. It plans to ask the World Trade Organization to establish a dispute settlement panel to look at the case and declare China's move illegal. This is the next step in the WTO's dispute resolution process. Australia launched a formal appeal to the WTO late last year on the matter. It says China's decision to slap an 80% tax on barley imports had effectively halted bilateral trade in the grain. But China is arguing that Australian farmers produce barley with government subsidies and sell it below cost, and that it's unfair to Chinese barley farmers. Australia's barley exports to China had been worth about $1 billion a year. Barley is used in beer production and in animal feed. This bilateral dispute is just one in a long list of political-tinged trade disputes between the two countries. At least 13 Australian sectors have been subjected to Chinese tariffs or some sort of disruption, and this includes beef, coal, and wine. The U.S. Senate has advanced a sweeping package of legislation aimed to boost the country's ability to compete with Chinese technology. It includes about $190 billion for provisions to strengthen U.S. technology in general and $54 billion to raise production of semiconductors, microchips, and telecom equipment. If it passes both houses of Congress, it will be sent to U.S. President Biden to sign it into law. He's set to unveil a $6 trillion budget later today. In a speech in Ohio, President Biden made it clear once again that he wants to sharpen U.S. competitiveness against China and across the globe.
We must be number one in the world to lead the world in the 21st century. It's a simple proposition. And the starting gun has already gone off. We can't afford to fall any further behind. Now's the time to build the foundation that we've laid.
Indonesia's government reportedly intends to propose a sunset policy to encourage the declaration of unreported assets. This similar to a previous tax amnesty program, but with much higher penalty rates. It will also come with an incentive to invest in government bonds. The government hopes the plan will improve tax compliance in the world's fourth most populous country with 270 million people, as just 15% of them are registered as taxpayers. Of these, just 3 or 12 million people file tax returns. Penalty rates for the so-called sunset policy are expected to range between 12.5% and 30% of asset value. Those found with undeclared assets thereafter will be further penalized. The previous amnesty launched in President Joko Widodo's first term was regarded as among the most successful in the world after uncovering assets worth $330 billion. However, the program attracted less than 1 million taxpayers. One counter that made its debut in Hong Kong today, JD Logistics, the delivery arm of JD.com. The counter jumped right from the opening at 46 Hong Kong dollars and 5 cents, or 14% higher than its IPO price. That will give the Chinese delivery and warehousing firm a stock market value of some $36 billion US, but it's given up most of those gains, closing some 3% higher. The IPO was more than 700 times subscribed by retail investors. The institutional offer was about 11 times subscribed. The shares were priced at $40.36 apiece, raising some $3.2 billion, making this the second largest IPO in Hong Kong this year. But remember, JD Logistics is facing fierce competition in the express delivery sector as more participants edge into the market. Its Q1 earnings fell nearly 73% compared to a year ago, and it's expected to record a significant adjusted loss this year. The listing comes at a time when Chinese authorities are tightening regulations on fintech companies and targeting tech giants with stricter anti-monopoly rules. One expert tells us why investors piled into JD Logistics IPO and the prospects for the logistics industry in China.
Well, what's actually attracting investors is that if you look at the logistic industry in China, it's actually growing at a very fast speed. I mean, maybe 20% per year because of the digital market has been growing. And JD Logistics is actually a very competitive player in this market, probably only next to Shunfeng Logistics. So investors are really confident and happy about this stock. It actually provides them with a new opportunity to buy a competitor of Shunfeng, a very strong, capable competitor of Shunfeng. So, you are an investor, you find more targets, you're pretty happy about that. For this industry, it will be under pressure for quite a while in the future. Meanwhile, the expansion rate will still keep on expanding. I mean, the growing rate will be around 20 to 30% for years because China's digital industry is actually increasing. But the problem over here is that the government is putting a lot of pressure onto things like employee protection, benefit to employees, social insurance, monopoly, all these kinds of things cut the potential profit that might be gained by these companies. So what you might see in the next few years is that the market keep on increasing because the digital market is actually expanding. The growth speed will still be there, 20%, 30%, but the profitability will be low or even negative. So it really based on how the investors are going to look at that. The market sentiment will play a lot in here. If investors believe that the profitability will return and the market is still growing, you will see a very bull market. But on the other hand, if people say, okay, they are not going to make a lot of money in the future, even if they are very large companies, the valuation will drop.
That's it for business. Back to you, Ateli.
Thanks, Eugenio. Singapore authorities have notified a social media platform, MeWe, to remove an offending poll that ranks women asatizas or religious teachers based on their sexual attractiveness. The Infocom Media Development Authority says the content has breached the Internet Code of Practice as it constitutes prohibited material. IMDA has also contacted other major social media players to ensure the poll is not circulated. Singapore Minister of Communications and Information, Josephine Teo, says that she is appalled by the poll. Mrs. Teo, who is also chairman of the People's Action Party Women's Wing, has condemned the poll in the strongest terms. She says this is a deliberate exercise to demean women, especially those who have dedicated themselves to upholding their faith. The minister also says MCI will continue its work to protect women and girls from online harm. MCI Parliamentary Secretary Rahayu Mazam deeply appreciates the clear stance that IMDA has taken on the issue. She says such disrespectful content about women asatizas has no place in society. She says the ministry is working on a Singapore Together alliance for action against online harms targeting women and girls. Discussions led by the AFA work group have highlighted the importance of cultivating a culture of respect for Singaporean women, both online and offline. She says behaviours perpetuating sexual harassment must be condemned. She hopes that all Singaporeans, both men and women, will work towards a safer and more responsible online culture here and with mutual respect for all. Still ahead on Asia Now, more US states getting creative to get residents to get vaccinated. Plus, climate scientists warn of back-to-back cyclones hitting India as no fluke.
Bearing the brunt of worsening global warming.
As we see the whole landscape changing, it is really impacting our way of life.
Can we reduce our carbon footprint to fight climate change?
We're doing our bit to not rely so much on the coal-fired power stations to power what we do in our house.
Are the steps we're taking really enough? CNA correspondent fighting climate change. Tonight on CNA.
奈々ちゃんは山梨名物のほうとう食べたいもの触れていません。俺全部いつも置くかな。
こうやってなるんだ。
いい話。はいはい。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation and SMBC.